Hey there YouTubers, my name is Alex, welcome back to Titan Bear Gaming. Today we're taking a look at another Kickstarter sneak peek from Windmill Slam Games. This is for their new book, Monsters and Magic, 100 new monsters and 100 new magic items for your 5th edition game, now on Kickstarter. So let's go ahead and take a look at Monsters and Magic from Windmill Slam Games. This is an active Kickstarter that's going on right now that we get a little bit of a sneak peek into. Now you might remember Windmill Slam Games is actually the same company that we've done before on their previous Kickstarter for a campaign setting that they call On the Shoulders of Heroes campaign setting. That one did previously fund. That one was a successful Kickstarter. I liked that one a good deal, and from what I've seen so far of this new Monsters and Magic that has over 100 magic items and 100 monsters to go with them, they're not going to disappoint. It's the same kind of style that they've taken from before, and I really like their style. That's one thing that I will give these guys from a writing perspective, and the themes that they like to embody and the themes that they like to use to illustrate their games. They have a tendency to go in the vein of realism and grit, and to take kind of a grim or darker style. You might recall that back in the previous preview that we did for On the Shoulders of Heroes, they had these paired magic crowns that one person who was wearing the crown was the master, and the other person who was wearing this other circlet was the slave, and the slave was blinded and deaf or something along these lines, and it gave the master some level of telepathic control over the wearer of the other crown. Yeah, they've got some pretty cool stuff, and they seem to be back at the same game now with this Monsters and Magic. But it's a new publication for 5th edition that's going to contain exactly what it says, monsters and magic items, and they're currently promising about 100 of each. They're expecting that it'll clock in somewhere in the 250 to 300 page range, which is about the same size as what On the Shoulders of Heroes campaign setting was. So they do have some practice at a book that size. Now, there are different backing tiers clocking at around $45 for the printed version of the book, as well as a PDF version of it. Or you could consequently get the PDF version and the reference cards instead of the book, if you feel like that would be more useful for you at the table, which I think is a good option as far as people's usage models go. If you want both the book and the reference cards, that clocks in, I think, $80 or so, and you can always just go for just the PDF for a much cheaper price point. So let's go ahead and talk about one of the sneak peek items and monsters that they've given me to look at here. The monster I like a good deal. Now, one of the things that they're trying to do in a very widespread way here in this book for monsters is to include a little bit more of ecology and motivations and where you might find these monsters in the same way that the monster manual for 5th edition does that, but to go a little bit further than that. They also provide layers down to giving you maps, potential maps that you can use in your game, as well as throwing in adventure hooks that you could use, small plots or little happenings or dramatic conflict or whatever that you can drop straight into your game if you want to, or use as thematic inspiration for your game. Those may include having an adventurer that's been trapped inside the monster's lair, or having some kind of other monsters that are trying to do something inside, or maybe there's a young monster in there, or a townsperson that's been stuck inside. So it gives you different motivations of things that you can run into and potentially unexpected things that may happen inside these monsters' lairs. They've also decided to go in the avenue of providing additional items or objects that you might find from these monsters or in the vicinity of these monsters, which I think gives a very fun Monster Hunter style that you can kind of harvest ingredients from these creatures and find some kind of market use for them. The monster that I want to look at today, they call the Empty Vessel. Now, this one is a undead creature that is a slightly different take on a swarm style than you might be familiar with. Instead of simply being a pile of rats or a pile of beetles or whatever, this is a hollowed out person's corpse that this swarm, the malevolent consciousness of the swarm, embodies the body. It literally inhabits the body and turns it into this big hollowed out shell that they're playing up the idea that a swarm is not just a whole bunch of rats. They're collectively motivated by some kind of evil magic or some kind of consciousness that drives all of them. And so this takes that and wraps it into a body form that has the ability to, say, lure a traveler off to their doom if they're not looking for this kind of trouble. Now, the book goes on to talk about how these empty vessels can be created when it's a matter of a product of some kind of negative energy. When someone dies in a particular space and their negative consciousness is then collected and creates one of these swarms of evil creatures, as well as reproducing by taking some of this evil swarm, or if maybe there's too much of the evil swarm inside one of these vessels already, that they go out and attack another vessel by poisoning some other kind of person to kill them and then hollow them out from the inside and start to use that as a new shell. So they take on this kind of cool undead walker it is undead, but it's not that the body itself is undead. The body is just a meat suit for this evil swarm. Now, they didn't include a layer for the empty vessel here, but they did give you an item that you can harvest from the empty vessel's corpse. Or they even go so far as to say that the empty vessel can produce this corpse juice, is the item, corpse juice, and may consciously and intelligently decide to trade their corpse juice off as a sellable resource, right? And the idea for this corpse juice is that it's basically a powerful formaldehyde or some other kind of preservation ingredient. And they also go so far as to say that the production of this corpse juice can then find its way into healers' circles or necromancy circles or even in certain church circles for if they need to try and perform some kind of embalming process or keeping someone who's been killed in potential resurrection condition for further on down the road. It works much like Gentle Repose magic spell in that a creature that's been killed is then preserved in a semi-magical state for the next 10 days or so that magic or resurrection effects that have some kind of time duration on them can still apply to the target. Now, I think it's really smart from Windmill Slam Games to think about it from the perspective of an object that this monster might use or produce or otherwise have harvested from its body that could otherwise find its way into some kind of market environment. I think that's a really cool idea, especially since they're going to be giving us 100 new monsters. If any significant percentage of them have some kind of magic item that is associated with the monster's person, that's a great way to amp that up into your 5th edition game that doesn't otherwise have a lot of that. So I have some pretty good faith in the Windmill Slam Games guys for being able to pen some additional monsters. Let's take a look at some of the magic items that they've given me here in the preview. Like I mentioned before, they like to do their bonded items concept, and in this case they deviate from that a little bit, but they have promised that there are going to be bonded item pairs in the final penning of this book. Now, the first item I want to look at is called the Gremlin Chest, and this is a slight variant on Thieves' Tools, and I think it's a really cool idea. This is basically a small box that on the lid has some kind of depiction of a wooden cabin with little imps hanging out in the windows on it. And when you actually open this box, there are tiny gremlins inside the box that will help you to perform a Thieves' Tools function. You can think of this that if you're sitting down to pick a lock somewhere, you pull out this little box, open them up, and then these tiny little guys crawl out, and they're like holding up for you as like assistant styles, lockpicks that you may need to use, files you may need to use, or whatever. And then once you finish using them, they're like your surgery assistant. You hand it back to them, and they take it back into their little workshop, and they polish it up, and they sharpen the instruments and whatever. The mechanical bonus that you get from it is you get advantage on the check that you're going to make. And I just think that it's a really cool thematic element for how a living tools system could possibly work out. It does say that it has a limited number of charges, that I think it says 4 charges or something, but that you can refill the box by using a pint of oil, which might indicate that maybe these gremlins are actually mechanical, but I kind of liked the idea instead that they're biological creatures, and it's literally a small, box, small village of gremlins that are just your little helpers as you're trying to pick these locks somewhere, and that you feed them or you re-energize them with oil. So I don't know, maybe it's taking a magical bend to it, but I think it's a really cool idea to have this kind of living assistant. They give us a new item of a bonded pair set called the Plane Hopper Arrows, and anybody who plays the Portal games will be very interested in this one. What these effectively are is 2 arrows. One is labeled as the white arrow and one is labeled as the black arrow, and something that you shoot with the white arrow will get teleported to something or a place that you shoot the black arrow, assuming that you hit in both cases. It does have a limit on it saying that it can only move up to 100 feet, and you have the ability that if you miss, you can magically retract the arrows if you miss on them using the keyword alone to bring them back. But it's a cool concept that I could see using for problem solving, especially if your friends are willing to get shot by the white arrow, or just to cause general mayhem in some kind of combat situation. And the last magic item that I want to look at is the Roulette Rapier. This one's fun, and I think this one's kind of an interesting nod to folks that just like rolling their dice. The thematic element for the Roulette Rapier is that it is a slender gilded rapier forged by the talented daughter of a blacksmith and tempered with the blood of her lover, who was an alcoholic gambler. The guard is highly decorated with slender frills of silver, and the pommel contains an enameled image of 6-sided dice in red, green, and black. Right, there's your funny little fourth wall nod. Now, it's got a cool power. What happens is when you attune to this weapon, you roll a d20 and you write down the number as being your wild number. And what basically happens is when you make attack rolls, if you roll that wild number, it counts as though you would have made a critical hit, even if you would have otherwise missed. So if your wild number was a 1, it now counts as a critical hit instead. When this feature happens, you then recharge your wild number by re-rolling the d20 in advance to see what your new wild number will be. So mechanically speaking, it's just a crit rapier, but it's a crit rapier in a way that's kind of fun in that you have to predetermine what the wild number is going to be, and it gives you kind of an interesting additional target that may or may not help you actually hit your target with kind of a weird number that you roll. In addition, it's a +1 weapon, so you get a +1 bonus to your damage rolls and to your attack rolls anyway. So check them out on Kickstarter. I think this is a really good preview. I'm excited because it is a monsters and magic items book that is centering on having monster fodder that you can give to dungeon masters for coming up with adventures or having interesting villains in your adventures, as well as magic items for the dungeon master to give to the players to claim to their dungeon masters that they're interested in trying to find these, as well as having some of the mundane items as well. They have like pets and they've got mounts and other interesting things that are going to be coming out. So I think there's a lot to like for both dungeon master and player. And the other thing that they seem to be doing well here is it's setting agnostic. Some of the entities that they've shown in the preview are a nod to their On the Shoulders of Heroes adventure setting, but it's not specific enough that it should preclude you if you're playing in a different setting like an Eberron or something else like that. So go ahead and check them out on Kickstarter.com. Like I said, the starting price point, let me see, for pledging for just the PDF, there we go, is about $17, whereas you also go up to the $45 point if you want to get a physical book or instead have the reference card aspect, and it's like $80, $85 or so if you want to get both the physical book and the reference cards. But I think it's really great. I've got a lot of faith in the Windmill Slam games guys. They did a great job with On the Shoulders of Heroes, and I expect no less from this one. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it. We post a new one every Tuesday, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and click the little notification bell at the same time to get a pop-up when those videos do go up. If you're hungry for more Titan Bear Gaming content, head on over to our Patreon, where our subscribers get access to even more content. We post special unreleased videos, bloopers reels, outtakes, sneak peeks for upcoming episodes. And for Patreon subscribers only, we release our weekly podcast with episodes going out every Monday. You can find us on social media at Titan Bear Gaming. Until next time I see you, have more fun, would you? It's good for you.